Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself and Sloth. Today we're going to be talking about our early thoughts and feelings on Graham Potter and how he compares to Julian Lopetegui so far. He's been in just over a month now, Sloth. We've seen a few games from West Ham. It's clear that there's big differences between how Lopetegui plays and how Potter plays. And yeah, obviously Potter's someone that was brought into the club at a time where we were looking into options in the free market. He was probably, as we decided on the channel, one of the better options available for what we were in the market for, or what we were trying to do with the managerial replacement of Julian Lopetegui. But now we've had a few weeks of Graham Potter, not just his personality, but his style, the way he's approached matches. We've had a few difficult fixtures. You know, we've played Aston Villa a couple of times, obviously just played Chelsea and lost. So what's your initial feelings on Graham Potter's early start to West Ham so far?
I'm far more excited to watch West Ham than I was under Lopetegui, and I think that's already a massive statement because there's a lot of negativity about the club from so many points at the moment, and whether that's issues with the concessions, fan treatment, atmosphere itself, or anything, I think what's been really good to see is how Graham Potter has changed the feeling around West Ham. And look, it's remiss of me to sit here and go, oh, we look levels and levels above where we were, and it's like a totally different side, all those kind of cliches. But I think when you watch us, we look like far more of a unit. There's by far and away a lot more of a plan of action, and you can tell that the players are on board, because I think particularly against Chelsea, you know, when we conceded that second goal, obviously it's heads down kind of thing, but I think under Lopetegui we would have conceded a couple more, and it wasn't like I'm saying it was a masterclass in defending or anything like that, but I think that when you look at how we set up, there's a lot more solidity defensively and also in the midfield. And that was one of the key things that I think under Lopetegui, we were just constantly getting cut apart through.
What would you say is the biggest notable change, if you could pick one thing, whether that's, you know, the players themselves, the structure, the performances, the approach? What's one thing you'd pick out that compares Potter to Lopetegui? Because there are a few differences, but what's the standout for you?
I think the performances are much better. As I kind of mentioned, you know, it's clear that there is a plan. And as daft as people might think that sounds, I think when you watch the Leicester game and you watch how we defended against, you know, we said it in the review, but the most predictable striker in the league, and that's not a disrespect to Jamie Vardy, but a striker who you know exactly how he's going to play and what kind of setup is going to benefit him, what kind of opposition he's going to play well against, or is going to kind of get the best out of his game. And we just waltzed into it without any sort of apprehension. It was like a fart in a trance. And, you know, I think you can say that about Mavropanos' defending in general this season, but for me to set up like that from the off is indefensible. It's terrible. And I think that is one of the major differences between Potter and Lopetegui at the moment. Is it we look like we've got a plan, and we actually look like we studied the opposition. You know, against Aston Villa, even in his first game, we played well. Like, we were much better than we had been. In the second game, we actually got something from it. And yeah, it wasn't 3 points. We maybe could have taken that. But I think there's a lot more positives in recent games. And it's something that might not be the most obvious at the moment because it is still very early days. But when I look at how we set up, how we defend, the playing style, it's night and day for me. You know, that sort of rigidity and approach to the game, I think, is where he's really separating himself at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think because my last memory of Julian Lopetegui was obviously the defeat to Man City, but it was the manner of the defeat. I remember in our review show we were highlighting one of those that Man City scored from, and it came from us pressing. And I think the press was Wan-Bissaka at left wing and Edson Alvarez as the front striker in that situation where we're pressing. We haven't seen anything like that under Graham Potter so far. As you said, it's been a lot more structured, a lot more coherent, and I think the players are buying into it. I think that was a big part of under Julian Lopetegui. I don't think the players really bought in or understood the direction we were trying to go in. Obviously, because we weren't getting results and we weren't seeing the change in fortunes under Lopetegui, the players maybe started to question that earlier than maybe the manager thought was going to happen. But I think with Graham Potter, as you say, it's very clear to see how we're going to play, the avenues of success that we're going to try and get, also the weaknesses that have come with that. But also, again, we've kind of said this whole 6 month period for Graham Potter is almost a mini preseason because we're out of both cups. We should be safe in the league, touch wood. And we're kind of in that middle spot of the table where we can afford to do that. And we haven't really brought in any big signings. Obviously, Evan Ferguson's come in, which is great on loan. And yeah, James Ward-Prowse has been recalled, but we didn't really do much recruitment in the January transfer window. So really, it's about the big few things we're going to see from Graham Potter over the next few months before the season ends is youth integration, getting the players up to speed with how he wants to play, and yeah, just preparing for the summer really, because we mentioned it in the transfer video we did the other day. There's going to be a big overhaul again in the summer needed for West Ham, because players are going to be departing. I think I saw a stat the other day that on average we're signing the oldest player in the Premier League, which is it completely aligns with the direction we've been going in the last few years under West Ham, not under Julian Lopetegui, but in West Ham in general. We tend to sign older players. We haven't really got that structure in place where Graham Potter had at Brighton, where he was bringing through younger talent, developing players. So yeah, what do you expect to see from West Ham over the next few months, Slough? Is it kind of all of those things I mentioned, and just obviously youth integration we've started to see already with Orford featuring. Obviously, Scarles has really impressed in recent weeks. Is that what we want to see more of? And again, maybe getting players like Jared Bowen up to speed with how he wants to play sooner rather than later. And then in the summer, we can go and recruit some of these players that he knows he needs to fill in those positions.
Well, I think that first off, one of the reasons I am feeling as positive as I am is that the academy usage has been fantastic from the get-go. And we mentioned that in the transfer video as well, where Lopetegui came in, put out a video with Earthy, and that was lip service. And we've been fair, I think, on David Moyes, but I think also he didn't utilize the academy. He gave them a couple of minutes and a couple of games here and there, like a kind of dead rubber in the in Europe. And
yeah, Mubama was the perfect example of that, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think that when you look at that, regardless of your feelings about him, whether you like him, loathe him, or anything, that was always an area that I think West Ham fans, you could have been the biggest David Moyes fan, but if you wanted one thing to change, it would have been more minutes for the academy players. That's something we've seen immediately addressed, and I think long may it continue, because it's very clear that the quality is there. The fact is that the players are coming in and making a difference. And you mentioned that average age of signings. Well, that's going to be something that massively takes away that need. And look, you can have the best academy in the world, you still need to recruit, but it's going to be something that helps at least alleviate the need to bring in players. And I think where we look at the likes of Orford and Casey, and we can see that there is very clearly a pathway into the first team, something that I don't think was really happening over the last 12 months at West Ham. And you mentioned Mubama. Well, people can say he wasn't good enough. You don't know. You can only look back and say that really at the end of someone's career. And it was interesting. I even saw Freddie Sears was talking about it.
Yeah.
I remember being at the game where Freddie Sears came on and scored on his debut, and I think it was against Blackburn.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think he scored twice, didn't he?
Yeah, and it was it's one of those things where you go, oh, you know, that's exactly what fans want. They want a youngster to come on and make a difference and have their day in the sun. And it's often a case of when we kind of get these false dawns, you can point the finger and say, well, that's on this manager, or it's on the play. You know, Reece Oxford is a good example. It's on the agent, and these kind of things where there are huge hurdles to overcome for any professional footballer. But when you have a manager who is clearly ready to back you, then it raises the level of everyone around you. And I think that's something that, again, with a smaller squad, we've seen the detriment of, because I think there were players who weren't given time that could have probably come in from the academy and made a difference. And it's also something that will add to us in the windows as well. You know, we could potentially sell a couple of youngsters. If someone like, say, Earthy, who's struggling out on loan at the moment, or someone like Kadua, who, you know, if they're not judged by Potter to be good enough for West Ham, well, at least they've been making appearances, or at least they get the chance to show what they're made of. And I think that's for me is the biggest positive of Potter so far, just from a purely personal point of view. But I do think that you shouldn't take from that the fact that I think we've looked a different level under him. And I'm not saying that as we're going to charge towards Europe. Like, that's not the statement I'm making. But I think we looked so bad under Lopetegui. The coaching looked so bad that it's a nice change of pace to have someone who clearly analyzes the opposition and coaches with a plan of action.
Yeah, my biggest concern is that West Ham fans in general over the next 3 to 6 months get too caught up in the results that we're seeing rather than the performances or the direction we're trying to head in overall. As we've always said in football, and will always be the case, results paper over a lot of the cracks that are happening at a football club. It's why we go through this stupid cyclical nature of 3 games or you're out. And, you know, the manager wins the last game, for example, the performance isn't great and they're given another 3 games. It's not how it's not sustainable. And we've said it before, but, you know, with Graham Potter, we still it's so early on in what he wants to do at West Ham and how he wants to play. What we're seeing right now is him trying to get a togetherness, trying to stop a team that was one of the worst defensive teams in the league so far this season and last season as well, and get them playing with a bit of confidence and belief, and then starting to transition from there. You know, it's building the foundations from the back to forwards. And we haven't had, I think we've won once under Graham Potter so far, and that was his first game against Fulham. Again, a game arguably we could have lost on the day. But, you know, when we look at West Ham's stats so far from this season, you know, we're conceding almost 2 goals per game, which we'll want to bring right down. We're not scoring enough. We're averaging 1.2 goals per game. You know, we're only got 12 shots. We're only averaging 12 shots per game, which is low. You know, 46% possession, again, low when you consider what Graham Potter wants to do and how he likes to play. So all of these things over time, we can start to analyze, and we'll start to see improvements, hopefully, when A, the players start to understand how he wants to play more, and B, once he's given that platform in the summer to, you know, sign a few players and bring in some really good talented players to come into that system and play how he wants to play. But until we see that, we can't really judge Graham Potter unless it's completely diabolical over this next few months, and we've had enough, and we'll be able to judge that as it comes. But as you say, I think we've seen enough encouragement over the last 4 or 5 weeks to suggest that there's improvements, albeit marginal improvements, but they are improvements. And it's going to take a long time to coach this team who have gone from such a different frantic nature, not really understanding how to play, to being very organized, you know, staying zonal, staying in your positions, you know, moving teams side to side, being defensively disciplined, playing a completely new system in a back 3. So it's all things, it's all learnings, it's all takings for Graham Potter to move forwards with. And as you say, integrating youth is obviously a massive plus that we've seen so far. But how does Graham Potter approach this next few months, Sloth, from your perspective? What's going to be his biggest focus in the next, let's say, for February?
Yeah, I think it's got to be finding a system which not only can you shore up the defence, but also start to really add goals from across the pitch. Because we've said since the start of the season there are players who are underperforming. I'm not going to name names because we've said it enough on the channel. But there are players who are underperforming and should really be looking to push towards the double digits for figures that they can try and get before the end of the season. That should be their goal. I think that as much as, I don't think he's a long-term solution for West Ham, bringing back James Ward-Prowse can give us something that we can look to build upon. And potentially, even if we have to go back to being set piece FC, goals come from those areas. Well, I don't really care. If that wins us games, gets us in that top half before the end of the season, then he will have done his job. And I think that for the biggest challenge he will have is not only making sure he gets those players performing. You shouldn't really need to do too much to get a song out of these quality players that we have. And I know that is a bit of a cliche, but you would think that the level of quality we have, you don't really need to do too much in terms of individual coaching. But if he can apply a system and a structure that gets the best out of them, create space for Bowen and Kudus and Paqueta to play balls through to them and run onto, I think that we will find ourselves in a good place. And it's something that I kind of saw against Chelsea, and I alluded to earlier, but I think that too many times earlier in the season under Lopetegui and even under David Moyes at the end, we would concede a goal and heads would drop. And I think that that's something that already looked a bit better under Potter. We chased an equaliser against Chelsea, and that's a massive difference to where I think we probably would have conceded another goal or maybe two under Lopetegui, where just heads are down and someone does something stupid. So it's about implementing that, picking up points, and at the end of the day, getting a bit of confidence back into some of these players.
Yeah, agreed. And even in the Aston Villa away game in the Premier League, we were 1-0 down in that game. In the second half, he made a couple of tweaks. He targeted Aston Villa's weaknesses, and we got ourselves back in the game and arguably could have won the game. So, he's already shown that flexibility in game management as well, which we didn't see under Lopetegui, really. And I think for me, the biggest thing I want him to focus on is building the core of this team and assessing, right, who is actually going to be here long term for me. Is it going to be, okay, Kilman and Todibo, I can see you guys being my long-term centre backs in this back three. Right, I'm going to work on developing you very closely. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, okay, I see you as my wing back. This is how I'm going to play you. Edson Alvarez, are you going to be my midfielder? Are you going to be that person for me next year? Thomas Souček, again, someone like that. Is it going to be that person? Is Bowen going to be on the right? Is Paqueta going to be playing? Is Kudus going to be sold? Like, so many different variables. He needs to decide that, and he's got this 3 or 4 month period to assess that. And the players are going to be playing for that as well, because they know if they're not performing under a new manager, there's no reason why they're warranted any chance of staying. We've seen it with the best managers in the league. Pep Guardiola, Joe Hart example is the perfect one to bring up every time. He was one of the best keepers in the league at the time, but he didn't suit how Pep Guardiola wanted to play, so he sold him. That's how you have to be. You have to be ruthless in certain situations. And I think Graham Potter will have the platform to do that in the summer. But this next few months, it's all about, as you said, development, integration of the youth, solidity, and understanding. I think those are the key points we need to see. But let us know down below in the comments what you think of Graham Potter's start to West Ham so far and how he compares to Julian Lopetegui and what you want to see from us for the remainder of the season. Do you think we could maybe push on and maybe do a late charge for Europe, or what is there anything else you want us to see so far this season? But if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and until the next one,
come on, you Irons.